Today we're going to be talking about demographics and housing need and how that affects how we do development. So I'm Lucy Greenwood from the residential research team at Savills, and we're joined by Natasha and Sarah. Natasha, tell us about yourself.
Hi, my name is Natasha McIntyre Hall. I work for Portsmouth City Council and I'm in the Regeneration Directorate. I head up a team looking at property development across the whole council. I'm particularly interested in this subject. We have this fabulous opportunity to look at a site which is circa 4,000 residential homes. But everything that we've done with it, we've started right from the very beginning, putting people first. So the part about demographics really is how people live, and I think that sometimes we are inclined to think of demographics as being, you know, what are we doing about the ageing population? Actually, it's more complicated than that. So we're looking at everything with health and well-being put first, and we are including a whole load of issues around sort of inclusive design. And what's really interesting is we've been pushing on like this for a couple of years now on TIPNA, and we're really excited that it's going to be this exciting project. But everything that's come on with COVID in the last few weeks actually has sort of escalated that trend that people want outside space, that they want to make sure that they can be part of a community, but they have the ability to isolate as well. And so a lot of what we are considering is around ways for people to engage and find their tribe, and look after their own mental and physical well-being. Other things that we're looking at the moment are about living and working, trying to make sure that people don't have to spend so much time commuting when they are commuting. So everything that we're trying to do is around that, putting people first and making sure we've got environments where people can get around. Doesn't really matter whether or not they've got wheels or they've got feet or they've got whatever it is that's coming up in the future, hoverboards. Just to make sure that we can actually, there is a space for these people, and flexible spaces. So quite often we look at city centres and we think about how they get used, but actually what we really need to consider is if we've got a square there, can it be multifunctional? Can we actually have a yoga class in the morning? Can we have a book club in the evening? And then are there ways that people can engage with it differently? Yeah, it's about people being part of a community and being able to find their tribe, and that's really what we're taking.
What do we think the mixture needs to be in terms of encouraging kind of those mixed communities and demographics to really thrive in areas? So Natasha, you've talked about some of the examples at TIPNA that you're planning for that. Are there any sort of things other than what you've mentioned before that you're kind of really pushing towards to make sure that it is somewhere that appeals to everybody?
I'm so pleased that you asked that. One of the main things that we're doing at the moment is we're trying to look at people need to be connected, but cars are not helpful when you think about a people first environment. So what we're trying to do is think about that connectivity as part of the infrastructure. So what we've got in TIPNA, we try to describe it as a sort of curbless living. So the idea that we can hide the cars away, perhaps in a podium deck somewhere else, but then means that people are free to move around. So instead of walking out of your door onto the curtilage of a car park or onto the edge of a road, actually you walk out of your door into public space. It's a completely different feel. And again, like so many of these older blocks were developed back when housing was just a requirement, just put up housing as quickly as you can. And the normal person was someone who could just get up and walk out of their house. Whereas now we know there are so many people, it doesn't matter whether you're walking out with, you know, you're shopping with your kids or actually you're just trying to negotiate the whole thing with 2 walking sticks. Actually, we need to be more considerate to how people interact with that. So we made one very simple change right at the beginning, and that's formed a very different way of us looking at everything we're doing. We also talk a huge amount about a view of blue. We're so lucky in Portsmouth, and I think I'm a complete advocate right now, and I'll say, you know, if you had to commute up into London 5 days a week, Portsmouth is not the place you want to live because the train line's too slow. If you're going up into London once, maybe twice a week, or if you have the ability to work more flexibly regardless of where you live, suddenly Portsmouth is just an awesome place to live. Doesn't matter where you are, you're 15 minutes from the sea. So when we talk about a view of blue, we're trying to make sure that well, I think we've got 85% of the units on Tipner West have a view of sea, and then the rest have a view of green, so where we've got public space. Last thing on this I'll add is that we've put on, we're extending out into the current sea, the harbour there, and what we've done is managed to create a just over 2 kilometre walkway that's accessible to the public. So we're adding to that public waterfront as well, which I think is really important. To add to your point there about being the interaction with the community. So obviously before pre-lockdown, I used to refer to I live in a village, and my interaction with the village on a daily basis was the 10 seconds it takes me to go from my front door to my car, and then drive off to wherever it was that I was going, and then I came back and I had another 10 seconds. Actually, if you start changing your relationship with the car by keeping the car somewhere else centralized, and even if it takes you, let's say it takes you a 5-minute walk to get to your car, actually that interaction and understanding, being able to see what's on and see different parts, and or maybe even just walk a different way to the car. It's easy to talk about when the weather's like this, obviously. Less easy to talk about when it's the middle of winter. But everyone that we've spoken to so far, not most people, are really keen on the idea of actually being able to interact with their community in an organic way.
Is there anything kind of related to thinking about the kind of different types of demographics that we have? We've talked a little bit about older people. You have families, but also single people, people working, people retired. In terms of the housing that needs to be provided, is there any kind of trends in terms of that, or things that you're trying to do at Tipner, for example, Natasha, to cater for everyone?
It's really interesting, and I think that we'll see the thoughts around this change quite dramatically over the next while. So at the moment, the thing that's coming through really strongly is that people want their own outside space, and that was something we were really very aware of in the first place, and we've tried to provide more open green space that can be used in different levels of privacy across Tipner. It's been something that we've worked really hard on. I did a little bit of swatting before I came here, and I actually had a look on the ONS website about population, and it says on there that in 2017 over 38% of people were living not as couples. I think that's really fascinating, because when we think about the type of accommodation that we're providing, we still focus very much around a family unit. It's either a family unit or it's a 1 or 2 bedroom, and then someone might be able to turn that second bedroom into an office. If more people are going to be looking for workspace at home, that's going to change, and we need to be aware of that, and we need to allow people that flexibility. But the flexibility can't just be people will work up from home. They're also in a community. There needs to be somewhere that people can go if they need human interaction to work, but not someone who's a colleague. And I think that we'll see more of that flexible workspace and more of that ability that you can work somewhere that isn't your bedroom, but within your community.
I think this sort of whole COVID scenario where we've been in lockdown and experienced different things about where we live and how we live is sort of reinforcing existing trends, or do you think it's going to kind of change things completely in terms of how we choose to live in the sort of demographic groups we live in?
I think it's accelerated people's thinking. I think it's very easy to think about, oh, do you know what, I'll move house, I'll do this, or I want to move out of London, or I want to, but actually having the impetus to do it and to change your life, being able to have that conversation with your boss where you say, actually, I don't think I should be coming into the office 5 days a week, can we think of something flexible? Those can be big, scary conversations and big, scary moves that you do where, it's quite nerve-wracking. Actually, now, the idea that we've all been working from home for 12, 13 weeks, whatever it is, and things have gone on. Projects are still moving on. We're still on the deadlines. We're still working to the same program that we were before. you know, the fact that during this pandemic we've managed to achieve such great things, what can we achieve when it's quiet and we allow people to work flexibly, and we allow people to take a few hours off during the middle of the day because they need to walk the dogs or look after the kids or whatever it is. You know, the number of Zoom calls I've been on where someone's got a baby or there's a dog in the background just reminds you that actually people are people. Jobs and work, that's sort of secondary from that. So if we can change some way or another that supports people to be able to work, I think that that's fabulous. And I think that we have a duty to design communities and places for people to live that help people to live a more healthy and sustainable life. I have such great respect for certainly our local politicians, because they always have to do something looking for a popular vote. They always have to be considerate of what's going, you know, sort of the short-term impact of what they're about to do. So it's very difficult for them to get behind these sort of long-term changes to an area that are going to disrupt people for a while. And I think what has happened with COVID is people have been disrupted, and now they're expecting more from what's going to come. And that makes it so much easier for politicians to be able to support it, which is terrific. And I'm being so lucky, actually, that politicians down in Portsmouth have been really supportive of saying to us, actually, the recovery in Portsmouth relies on development and the council needs to lead the way. And so with our project in the West, you know, it's still moving forward at exactly the same pace that it was before. And what's particularly great about it, because it is so big, actually the lessons that we're learning on Tipner West, we're putting into all of our smaller projects that are coming forward. So we are trying to make sure that health and wellbeing is the centre of every single development that we do. So by the time we deliver Tipner West, actually, that will just be the way the Portsmouth works.
So incredible to sort of see that change and to see the kind of the mix of people wanting to be with other people, of other types of people, and developers sort of making those changes. And I guess that's the challenge for the development industry, to be reactionary and actually meet the needs of what the consumer is, as we've talked about before.
We can't even be reactionary, though. We have to be forward thinking. We have to plan ahead, because again, Tipner West, you know, we're planning a start on site in 23, but we're having to design it now. And what I don't want to do is design something now and then find that by the time we come to 23, it's out of date and I'm providing something with something that can't move with it. So we're trying to build in flexibility, and we're having these conversations about, so for example, with the taking away cars and putting them in the podium deck, if it takes 7 minutes to walk, but actually someone's broken their leg or someone has any sort of mobility issues, how can we move them over? So today, the answer would be a fleet of people and golf carts that go and pick people up and move them around. But at least then it's electric, it's quiet, it's slow, and it moves people around. But actually, by the time we come to 23, there's no way. There'll be something that's automated. There will be a pod that you can call that will come and pick you up. And there will be a managed solution that moves. So it's about building in that flexibility of saying, I know that we can do it today, so it's not a complete pipe dream, but actually, how would we like to see this operate? What is the best way of looking after the people here? And how can we leave the space for technology to help us find a better solution than we've got today? And technology is going to be the key to so many bits in housing developments. I think project managers particularly, we probably need to upskill a little bit and understand a bit more about the technological solutions that exist out
there. Natasha, do you have anything you kind of want to kind of reiterate or summarise to finish off?
Really is that people are individuals, but they thrive best when they have a tribe. And what we need to do in development is allow people to have that space to be themselves and to be able to isolate. I was really trying to avoid that word. To be able to isolate should they need to, but actually interact and be part of a tribe. We need connection. And that is really what's going to be the most important, about making sure that we're looking after people who are pushing prams, or people in wheelchairs, or people who've got who may be autistic. Actually, what can we do in terms of design to make it easier for them to navigate themselves around a space and feel safe and connected?